Well, good morning and welcome to Elevenses. I'm Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training, and this is my twice weekly webcast, which thanks to Microsoft and the update cycle is 10 minutes late this morning. Everything was ready to go, and then 1 minute before I was due to click the go live button, the computer decided to do an update, which it's not supposed to do at this time of day. Anyway, here we are, and again have a fairly busy show for you today. Heads up on the latest subscriber-only article on coffee. We'll have a look at the problems which could be coming up for people who are planning to renew their driving licence in the very near future. A charity ride has raised £10,000 for dog bite down in the West Country, which is great news. Less good news is the snake that bit a biker who had returned from a holiday to Spain and Portugal. Energica are to supply their electric motorcycles to the Barbados police. And here in the UK, a strong September sales record has boosted the overall 2023 figures. We'll have a quick look at a new Eliminator 500 from Kawasaki, and Suzuki have revealed a hydrogen-powered bike. TVS, meanwhile, are showing off an electric bike that they have jointly designed with BMW. And finally, in the in-depth section today, at the end of the show, we will look at the concept of lean, as in flab-free riding. So stay tuned for that. That will be coming up right at the end of the show. Now, don't forget, if you've got a question, if there's anything you want to ask, drop me a line, and we'll always try to answer you if I possibly can. I'll usually try to get to you during the show. If I can't manage it during the show, I will get back to you at the end. Okay, so what have we got for you today? Well, as I said, first things first, the good bit of news. I've been working hard, but I have finally managed to get every one of the items from the 2014 to 2022 Skills on Saturday and Tips on Tuesday series that run on Facebook and also on Coffee. They're now indexed, so by year, so that you can go to you can scroll through a particular year. There'll be 100 articles, roughly speaking, per year, and you can see what I wrote about. So it makes it a lot easier to find any article than you can manage it on Facebook, which is why they're on Coffee in the first place. Those, as I say, are available to anybody who wants to go and look at them. They've often been rewritten, they've frequently been updated, and I am, of course, filling in 2023 as I go along, so that would mean by the end of the year there'll be 1,000 articles to read online. Now, supporters can, for the price of a coffee, get a month's access to all these articles, so you can dip in and then out again whenever you like, catch up with them at your own pace. On the other hand, if you subscribe with a regular payment, you get access, of course, while you're subscribing, but you also get a growing number of other articles from my more specialist series. And as a little thank you, an extra thank you to all my Coffee subscribers, I'm now making a point of adding a little extra article once a month. So this one, this month, goes even deeper into the debate on trail braking on the road. Now, there were a lot of comments in the two articles on Facebook which you may not have read, so what I've done is I have put those together, created something which I hope is a logical deconstruction of the technique and explains why it's not a magic bullet for riding corners on the road, but why it is a sound get out of trouble technique. So that's available to all subscribers now. If you're an existing subscriber, just head off and read it, and if you're not, why not have a think about subscribing, and you can get to it hopefully after the show. Here, I'll just put that up on the line. Right, okay, so thank you all for that. Claire's looked in, and we also have Kevin and Clive, so nice to see you, and a few anonymous viewers too. So right, anyway, what else have I got to tell you? Well, you can also find me now on Blue Sky, the new social media channel, if you want to avoid having to go via the channel formerly known as Twitter, now known as X. I will be posting updates regularly on blue sky. So let me just give you the link there, so you can pop over there. Again, find my social media channel over there, and it's invite only at the moment, of course, but hopefully you will be able to blag an invite, and then you can follow me over there. And one final point before I get into the news today, just a word of warning: the weather, as you probably noticed, it looks like the end of our Indian summer, and there are weather warnings out for rain affecting most of the country over the next couple of days. So look out for flooding and surface water if you are out there on the roads. All right, so moving rapidly on then, it's time for the news items. What have we got for you first? Well, the driving license. Over the years, they've made that simpler to apply for by going online and doing it, but it seems there are problems. Now, it's not entirely clear exactly why there are issues, but it seems to be affecting people with passports issued since 2016, but for some reason do not have a digital signature stored online. Now, DVLA spokesperson said, quote, "For the vast majority of drivers choosing to renew their driving license online, we are able to use the digital signature directly from the passport office, but it seems that some users are receiving a pop-up message saying that their online application cannot continue because their passport is invalid." Well, it's not the passport. It appears to be an issue with the digital signature. Now, if that happens to you, I'm afraid you have to head off to the post office to complete your application. And the bad news is that there's likely to be added delays there, of course, and an increase fee up to £21.50 from the online price of just £14. Now, DVLA do say they are currently working on a solution which will allow drivers to apply online, which they hope to launch later this year. So that's something to be aware of if you are looking out for a digital passport. Right, a couple of comments have come along here. Right, Clive says, are we in? I can't see anything. You should be, Clive, because I can see myself on my other screen. So yes, you should be okay there. Claire says that she can see and hear me, and Clive says got it on YouTube. Okay, it may be that the Facebook feed is not functioning then. All right, okay. I can't check that right this moment, but I will look back at the end of the show. Okay, in other news, a charity motorcycle ride-out has raised more than £10,000 for DocBike. Now, more than 600 motorcyclists turned out on Sunday, September the 24th in support, and they rode around some rides in Dorset and Somerset. Now, Dorset riders Ian Mew and the critical care paramedic Mark Williams, they led separate convoys through Dorset's country roads, whilst Sussex regional lead John Alsop, which reminds me, John, you are supposed to be contacting me, led Bridgewater's convoy through Somerset's country roads, and they finished the ride at Henstridge Airfield, where they were able to enjoy, it says here, displays, food and music, and to discover the winners of the Grand Raffle, which had prizes donated by local businesses in Dorset. Now, Dr. Ian Mew, who is co-founder and trustee of DocBike, said, quote, "We're blown away by the support received at this year's ride out. The DocBike charity receives no funding from the government and relies on the generosity of the public to continue our life-saving work. So we're thrilled to have raised such a fantastic amount which will help towards our ever-growing operational costs." And he continued, "Whilst this event helps to raise much-needed funds for the charity, the support we receive from the motorcycling community for our work to reduce motorcycle collisions and providing life-saving critical care to anyone who needs it, not just motorcyclists, means so much more." So yeah, a very worthwhile charity, DocBike. Now, one problem that I very much doubt that the DocBike team would be expecting to encounter when they turn up to an incident involving a motorcyclist is to discover that the rider has been bitten by a snake. Now, this happened back in August on the 19th, when Dave Craker, he was out on a ride when his right leg started to swell up after he felt a searing pain in it. Now he went off to Eastbourne Accident and Emergency, and doctors there said it was very likely that he had actually been bitten by something. But it wasn't until he went out for another ride, and then apparently there was a foul smelling liquid leaking from the machine. He thought it was antifreeze apparently. He removed a panel on his BMW R1200 GS to investigate, and that's when he discovered the remains of the snake. So he went off to hospital rather quickly, where he was given an antidote. Now the 18-inch long snake is believed to have been a species of viper. Dave believes the snake must have crept between the panel and the fuel tank, possibly to keep cool, during his tour to France, Spain and Portugal. And he said, I guess me and my partner squashed it when we sat on the bike to go to Eastbourne, or I squashed it with my leg, so it bit me, but I didn't feel it through my biking jeans. Well, there you are, a very, very unusual emergency for a rider to face. That one's certainly not the regular kind of problem that we have on a bike, is it? Right, so okay, don't forget, if you want to catch up with the Elevenses, then you can always find them on Wednesdays and Sundays at 11 o'clock, barring the odd glitch like this morning when the update cycle took over. Occasionally these are recorded shows, and very rarely I will miss one altogether, but you can catch up with the entire seasons of them over on my YouTube channel. Right, okay, so let's have a look at some motorbikes. Now the first thing I want to talk about quickly here is the Energica Barbados purchased police bike. Now where's it gone? Lordy, hang on a minute, I've managed to lose the graphic that I'm wanting to put up. There it is, they're all out of order. I thought I'd done that so carefully as well. Right, so here's the latest police bike to be used in Barbados. Now it's the Energica electric motorcycle, it's the SS9 Plus, and the goal of acquiring these machines is to help realise the fact that Barbados wants to be fossil fuel free by 2030, which is a fairly ambitious target. BIM EV services, they will provide the Barbados police with the machines. They're due to go into service in the next couple of weeks. The bike has a 109 horsepower motor in it, and it will do 90 odd miles before the battery needs a boost if you're riding at average speeds. Fast charge station can bring the battery back to 85% in less than 30 minutes. However, you do pay for the combination of range and performance, because the bike is no lightweight. It is 270 kilograms or 595 pounds. Now here at home, it was a fairly strong month for bike sales, which is good news, closing the month at up 11%, and the scooter segment is finishing ahead of last year's total. For the first month this year, scooter sales have been pretty poor all through the year, and the reason, well, September's a new registration plate month, so it's generally a pretty good month for bike sales, but overall the market is still not looking too healthy. It's down 2.1% over last year all told. Now the government has recently delayed the ban on diesel and petrol cars from 2030 to 2035, but the headline here is masking an interesting factor that I didn't know about the phase out. All 80% of all new cars and vans must be zero emission by 2030, so it's not exactly what it seems. It is actually fairly significant. Now the government apparently is yet to respond to the phase out consultation from the motorcycle sector, where the MCIA and its manufacturer members have pressed for a delay in the implementation of this ban for two-wheelers. Okay, so I know I have a little bit of a reputation for being critical of the IAM, but when they start advancing themselves as authorities on road safety generally and start making political points rather than just sticking to enhancing rider and driver skills, then I think it's allowable to look at what they say with a more critical eye. Now, a couple of weeks ago, it was their stance on 20 limits in Wales that caught my eye, and I talked about that on Sunday. When they said the benefits aren't proven, and I really don't think that's correct. This week they claimed that almost 2 in 3 motorcyclists believe that the cost of safety wear has prevented them from purchasing items that would enhance their safety whilst on a motorcycle. Almost 2 in 3? That is a huge proportion. Now, road legal helmets that score well on the sharp tests are well under £100. There are CE approved garments available at the budget end of the market of the price scale. Even airbag vests can be had for under £300 these days, so I don't find this claim actually very credible. In any case, there's certainly little to suggest that the average rider who enlists in the IAM is short of a bob or two. Look at the bikes they ride, surprisingly frequently BMWs, unless of course it's the age-old mistake of equating RRP with protection. So, okay, what have we got today? Still to come, we have the item on fat-free riding. Let's go and have a look at what else we've got on the bike front though. Hopefully got the right picture up this time. Yes, there it is. Right, okay, so what's that we're looking at there? Well, it's a bike which is going to offer you yet more mid-capacity A2 choice. It's the new Kawasaki Eliminator, and it's said to appeal to riders looking for a low seat or Kawasaki's distinctive urban cruiser styling. Now, 3 seat heights are available, 735mm, which is standard, or you can go 20mm lower at 715mm, or you can go 30mm higher at 735mm. I'll leave you to convert that to inches. So the seat height there really should suit just about anybody. The machine is built around a brand new trellis type steel chassis, and it houses the equally brand new 451 fuel injected water cooled 8-valve parallel twin engine, which has been derived from the 400cc motor in the Ninja. Now apparently it's been done, this is news to me, I didn't know this before, they've simply given it a longer stroke, 6.8mm longer stroke, and it's said that this delivers strong low rev performance combined with lively upper rev range ability. And just to make sure that you can launch it, you get a takeoff assist, and just to make sure it changes gears smoothly, and when you let the clutch out on the downshift, it's got a slipper clutch. Now you do get obviously the cruiser styling, which has a nod towards previous Eliminator models, say Kawasaki. The wheel combo is an 18-inch front and a 16-inch cast wheel. Conventional forks at the front, twin rear shocks at the back. The die-cast swing arm, interestingly, mounts directly to the back of the motor. That's said to save weight and improve stability. Presumably it's a stiffer. Now, with its relaxed riding position and its comfortable seat, the bike is said to be passenger friendly too. You also will get full LED lighting. The instrumentation is all digital, and you can connect your Kawasaki app to your phone. So, alright, you get a special edition with the original name of SE, and for that you get different colour schemes. You get a headlamp cowl, you get rubber fork gaiters, handlebar mounted USB-C port, and a unique seat. I do wonder why the USB port's not just basically built in now as a standard into the instrument panel. No idea. Anyway, the class limit, of course, for the A2 license is 35 kilowatts or 47 horsepower, so that will probably mark the bike's output, although the same motor is in the new Ninja 7 Hybrid, and there it's claimed to put out a fairly hefty 58 horsepower, so maybe there will actually be an A and an A2 model available. It's easy to restrict these things now via a sort of plug-in unit. Kawasaki say the cruiser will be over here in the UK from January 2024, and the guide price is currency fluctuations, of course, between £6,600 and £6,800, so not desperately expensive by current standards. Now, Suzuki also chose the 2023 Japan Mobility Show as the place to unveil their first ever hydrogen-powered two-wheeler. Now, calling it a test vehicle rather than the prototype or a concept, they said that it's based around the Bergman 400 and it's fitted with a 70 megapascal hydrogen tank and an ICE engine adapted to burn the fuel. Now, companies say that exhibiting the vehicle is going to allow them to gather more data about how current riders perceive what they want to ride in the future. Now, Suzuki have previously demonstrated experiments using the Bergman as a base for an electric scooter using swappable batteries from Gechako, and of course they also have used it as a basis for a fuel cell powered bike, so very versatile platform and certainly a useful test bed there for Suzuki. Right, okay. Kevin, he says he agrees kit is is relatively inexpensive, and he said he's even bought decent used kit. Yeah, absolutely no reason why you can't buy a decent leather jacket. Yeah, okay. Richard says took a while for Facebook to link up. Naren says it's working fine now. Okay, good news. All right, excellent stuff. Right, okay, moving on rapidly then. Back in 2021, BMW announced that it would go into partnership with the Indian manufacturer TVS, and that work that they would be doing would expand to include electric motorcycles. Now, TVS, you're probably aware, built the 310 series of BMW's ICE bikes, and the move to link up with TVS was hoped to allow for more affordable electric motorcycles too. The prototype of this particular machine was actually seen some while ago, but BMW have just announced that the TVS CE02 will actually go into global production. So there it is, photographed on display. Now, as mentioned previously, when I looked at this bike in the prototype stage, there are two power options. There'll be a short-range AM version with a claimed range of just 30 miles, 50 kilometers, but there will also be an A1 bike which gets a Lerner 125 legal 11 kilowatt 14.6 horsepower peak rated motor, and this offers a 0 to 30 50 kph time of 3 seconds and a top speed of just under 60 miles per hour. The pair of batteries on this bike, they hold 3.92 kilowatt hours of energy, so whether the bike will actually get to BMW's minimum range of 90 kilometers or 56 miles per hour on the World Motorcycle Test Centre is, I would have said, doubtful. Charging takes 100 minutes too, so it's pretty slow, and that's with the optional quick charger too to get you from 20 to 80, so not nearly as fast as the Energica we were talking about a moment ago. However, the bike does get an almost maintenance free belt drive, and interestingly, of course, it gets a single-sided swinging arm too. So as it doesn't look like a motorcycle, I suspect it's not going to be marketed at motorcycles. My guess is it will be marketed to non-bike riders. So it makes it just a tad surprising that BMW have also said that they'll not be making a scooter version of this machine, just the naked. Now, if you are interested, it is due to arrive in April, and the price is a fairly whopping €8,500, which is probably more than most of us want to spend. Right, now before I move on to the final part of today's show, which is the in-depth item, don't forget, if you want to read my paperback books, you can find them at my publisher. I'll just pop the URL online for you. head over there. You'll find out all about my books, including Tarmac Tactics, Survival Skills, Mind Over Motorcycle, and plenty more besides. Lots to read, keep you going through the winter here in the Northern Hemisphere. Right, okay, so on to the final piece of today's show. Well, this is, I'm calling it lean, as in flab-free riding. Now, in my Focus on Friday series, which has been running for a while, I've been trying to answer a seemingly simple question. How can you tell if a rider is competent? Not expert, mind, not advanced, but competent. Competence, let me remind you, refers in a general sense to being capable of performing a task effectively and efficiently. So the sort of gloss, the sparkle beloved of advanced examiners isn't necessary. It's just a sound level of ability, skill and knowledge that gets a job done. So let's have a look at how I see this as an issue. Now, whilst I was answering questions on this, I happened to come across an item on RevZilla written by Dylan Code. Now that's Dylan on the left with Keith on the right, and the title of this piece was Minimum Necessary Control Inputs, the standard for measuring your riding skills. And Dylan goes on to say that the best metric or gauge for a rider's skill is how closely they compare with the standard of minimum necessary control inputs. Now, on a racetrack, he says we could observe a pro racer compared with a novice racer. If we counted up the total number of control inputs for both riders, we would see a vast difference. The novice would be observed modulating the brake pressure with perhaps a few nervous taps at corner entry. The number of steering inputs in a single turn would stack up after the primary steering action, as several follow-up steering adjustments would be seen. The throttle would vacillate along with the steering corrections, and he says that a casual observer would refer to the novice rider as shaky. So, what can we make of that then? Well, Dylan's mostly talking about riding on the track, but I think this works for the road too, and I'm sure we can all think back to our earliest days of riding and see ourselves in that description. I know I can. What Dylan calls a pro rider would, he says, quote, be observed to make far fewer control inputs. For most corners, they would apply the brakes once, steer once, release the brakes once, roll on the throttle once. Complicated corners such as decreasing radius double apex corners would have more inputs, but the point is the same: minimum necessary control inputs. So does this mean being smooth? That's another word that's associated with advanced riding, as in just a few things I found online after a very quick look. Tips for smoother, safer riding. Advanced riders are smooth and therefore swift, or smooth and effortless, and smooth, stable and comfortable. But what does smooth actually mean? Well, it's a word that's very much open to interpretation, isn't it? And the fact is, I've seen riders smoothly apply the brakes, but applying the wrong amount of force, either too much or too little, thus ending up at the wrong speed and having to make a second input as they roll into a corner. I've seen riders smoothly lean a bike over towards a bend too, but too smoothly, too slowly at the wrong moment, and again they end up having to make a correction because they find themselves on the wrong line. I've seen riders smoothly apply the throttle in a corner, but either too early so they run wide, or oh so smoothly too hard that they actually lose the back end and high side out of the corner. So smooth isn't exactly a useful measure of competent riding, not in my opinion. So what could we use? Well, as it happens, I think that phrase minimum necessary control inputs actually ticks a lot of the boxes that we should be using if we're trying to see if a rider is competent. Now, I've spent many years personally trying to understand just what makes for competent riding, partly to improve my own abilities, but also how to spot it in front of me when I'm actually running a training course. So it's no coincidence that I actually wrote about this concept years ago, and so did my old buddy Malk, the former instructor. Now, Malk has always had a bit of an eye for a catchy epithet, and he called it lean riding. So lean as in fat-free, not lean as in angle of dangle. Now, of course, Dylan is talking about track riding, and on track we are monitoring the positions and paths of other riders, but at the same time we are generally focused on one simple and fairly straightforward task: to get around the track as quickly as possible. Now, it's reasonable therefore to ask if the minimum necessary control input concept applies on the road. Well, I'd say it applies even more to road riding, because we're in a very different environment, and one of the things that we have to do on the road is divert a big chunk of our mental processing power towards the various hazards that we find around us. Everything from the essentially unpredictable nature of the road itself, even a corner we know well is never the same 2 days running, to the sometimes seemingly random actions of other road users, of course. So lean riding offers a big advantage. By removing the unnecessary elements from our riding, we not only keep things simple, not simplistic, I'll point out, not they're different things, they're different terms. We keep things simple, and we allow more of our mental abilities to focus on the environment around us, rather than simply keeping the bike going in the right direction. So the sort of things that I see as fat in this concept are unnecessary changes of speed and position, because each time we make a machine input we are having to decide how much of that change we're going to make, but we also destabilize the bike, and of course we're eating into our limited mental reserves even if we're not aware of it. Each decision that we have to take creates that mental workload. Now, too much attention on how we're handling the bike, because we're making a lot of inputs, means that we have less of that attention to see what's going on around us, potentially missing threats to our health. So let me give you an example. You may have been following my why you shouldn't trail brake on the road post in the Skills on Saturday series. If not, you can find it on Coffee or go back to Facebook and dig it out there. Now, I had a long debate in the comments on that section with a proponent of the technique, and he did actually give me some sound arguments about the pros of carrying the brake into a corner. But if you put trail braking to the test by applying the lean riding and the minimum necessary control input rules, and I think it's pretty clear that trying to mix and match brake and lean actually makes matters quite rather more complex, not simpler. We're carrying more speed first of all into a bend, because frankly, if we're not, think about it, there's no benefit to trail braking, is there? We're already going at the same speed. If we carry more speed into a corner, then our more rapid arrival allows less time to assess the corner. As we turn, we have that job of balancing between lean angle and braking force, and it's far simpler of course to brake upright in a straight line, where we can easily recover even a front wheel skid if we haven't got ABS. And finally, it's far easier to transition from the off throttle to on throttle when we finished our braking if we're upright in a straight line than it is when we do it in a corner, when the forks are going to go from partly compressed to partly extended. Much easier to do that when we're upright. So nothing about trail braking that I can see makes life simpler. Now, by all means, as I've said, learn the technique for getting out of trouble, but not as a magic bullet for improving cornering. Now, years ago, Keith Code actually talked about what he called the rule of one for cornering on track: one braking action, one steering action, one accelerating action. Can we do that on the road? Well, I'd say that it kind of equivalent to my slow in, cautiously round, faster out approach to riding bends. And we can certainly drill down to individual activities and look for the application of lean riding. I talk about the need to understand the entry, turn in and exit reference point system for bends, because allowing when we understand those, it allows us to actually time our machine inputs to the correct part of a corner, and that means we can use one of each of these inputs. Braking, for example, should be a smooth one-off settle, squeeze, ease approach. What it shouldn't be is on off, but how often do you see riders actually doing that? So the settle squeeze ease allows us to use a one-shot approach to using the brakes. We can use the turn in tip in approach to cornering, where our first steering input puts us on a line to follow the corner, the second puts us on the line that exits the bend most effectively. And throttle use, if we get lightly on the gas before we turn into the bend, we then progressively open the throttle only when the bike passes the exit to the curve. So it's actually surprisingly simple when you break it down that way. Now, of course, we'll never get every corner on the road quite that pure. Many corners are multiple radius, many bends don't uncloak themselves until we're well on into a curve, so a decreasing radius curve, as Dylan said earlier, will usually require at very least a second steering input much deeper in the turn. It may even require us shutting the throttle to slow down and pull the bike in tighter. It may even require that we brake deep in the corner to decrease speed further and turn even tighter. But even when dealing with these complex bends and these complex inputs, applying this lean riding minimum necessary control input rule is still a very sound goal to aim for. So if we can see a rider, I think, able to demonstrating that they can use these techniques, then I'd say we're looking at a rider demonstrating a decent level of competence, and I think that's actually more important than smoothness or sparkle. I anticipate some arguments on that point. Right, what have we got here? Terry's talking about hydrogen powered motorcycles. I'll come back to that, Terry, talk to you about that later. Terry also says optimal or prudent springs to mind as yardsticks of rider performance in manoeuvres such as cornering. Makes sense to me. Right, okay, so here we are then at the end of the show, a little bit later than actually anticipated, thanks to the reboot of the computer with an update for 10 minutes before I got going, but here we are anyway, not too late. So it's time to wrap up today's show. First of all, don't forget, do subscribe and like if you possibly can. If you're on YouTube, you can hit the buttons over there, which will all help people find these shows. Do check out my other videos if you're on YouTube, by the way. 60-second safety, 60-second science, hopefully a new 60-second science one going up tomorrow. They all offer you useful information, but in a quick to watch, easy to digest video format. So do tell your buddies about what I'm doing over on YouTube. Share the link. Right, that is pretty much it for today. If you are out there, it's a reasonably dry morning, reasonably bright here in London at the moment, clouded over a little bit, and there is rain on the way, so make sure that you keep an eye on the weather forecast, and if you are riding today, make sure you stay shiny side up.